You ever play a game and realize, I'm not actually the hero here? I'm a guy holding a flashlight, and then other people are saving the world. Yeah, you're not the chosen one, not a legendary warrior, you're not on the poster, you're part of it, but you're like holding a flashlight for the guy or something. Or maybe you're just a decoy. I'm looking at you, Metal Gear Solid 5. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 20 games where you are not the main character. Starting off with number 20 is Ghostbusters, the video game. Instead of having you play as the main returning Ghostbusters who do appear in the game, the developers behind this thing had the novel idea of having you play as a silent protagonist known simply as the Rookie.
Ah, Z! You'll have to go through me first. That's exactly what he said.
Just like a puppy. Every day's the first day.
He's never given a name, almost never acknowledged by the other characters, just along for the ride. He's so anonymous, it's easy to forget he was even a thing. In fact, if I'm completely honest, after having not played Ghostbusters, the video game, in a while, I did. My first, instinct was that you bounced around between Ghostbusters during the missions, but that's not what happens. You play as one specific character, he's just not the main character. As you'd expect, the original four are the actual main characters of the story, who get the dialogue, the jokes, the dramatic moments. You play as, basically a camera that participates in the action. The rare few times the character does get acknowledged, it's like a joke. He's so anonymous. I'm not kidding. I forgot it was a thing. It's not like I played the game recently, but the guy's super forgettable. We hope our videos here on gameranx aren't forgettable, and we also hope that you won't forget to click the subscribe button. Believe it or not, very few people who are currently watching are subscribed, so we gotta ask. It helps us out a ton, and we hope it helps you see some stuff that you want to see. So thanks a ton for clicking subscribe, and let's get back to the video. At number 19 is Maneater. How do you make a shark the protagonist of a story? Simple. You don't. Instead of trying to build a narrative around a big fish that eats people, Maneater's story follows a faux reality show about the shark hunter, Scaly Pete.
Shark can be identified by rusty harpoon embedded in flank.
Get out of my way. Got a job to do.
He's basically the bad guy of the game, and the one you're trying to get revenge on, but the actual story of the game is about him. If there's any attention given to the shark, it's portrayed as being part of nature, a nature documentary specifically. The shark is never really portrayed as a character. You're an animal. It's not like I was saying, you're an animal, man. I don't know how you ate that much cake. I mean, you ate a lot of humans. You're a shark. You actually are an animal. Anyway, you don't actually get a motivation. You're not really, it's revenge. It's just that you inevitably encounter this guy again after going on bigger and bigger rampages.
Got us some dinner coming, boys. Let's get her up on deck, huh?
There's barely a story. It's just mostly an excuse to chat on some delicious beachgoers, but when there is a story, you're clearly not the main character of it. And number 18 is Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. You could play a Lord of the Rings game where you got recognizable heroes like Aragorn and Gandalf or Legolas or Gimli, but how many times has that been done? Enough, let's say. Want to do something different? Well, no? Too bad. This is Lord of the Rings: Third Age. Final Fantasy X looking RPG where you play as a bunch of nobodies, following in the footsteps of the actual heroes of Lord of the Rings, just sort of puttering around, looking for Boromir. Real exciting stuff. I didn't say all these games were going to be good. And although the basic idea of playing as other characters telling a story that was going on at the same time as Fellowship of the Ring, it's a fine idea, but this game constantly reminds you that you are the B team. In one of the most bizarre choices I've ever seen for a game, it's constantly cutting away to clips of the movies, giving you long-winded and tedious recaps about what the actual heroes are doing while you're wandering around in the woods fighting orcs for no reason.
Yes, my friend, I have marked you upon the long road from Minas Tirith.
And when I say constantly, I mean all of the time. There's 109 of these clips in this game. They just keep happening. They're mostly unprompted. They don't add anything to what's going on. In fact, they take away from it pretty significantly because all they do is remind you how much nothing you're actually doing. And number 7 is Watch Dogs Legion. This game is bizarre because you kind of are the main character, but also not. There really is no main character at all. Even if the concept of the game is supposed to be that anyone can be a main character, in practice it's a big gaping hole in the story where the main character should be. The central concept is you can recruit and play as any NPC in the game, and everybody has different skills and abilities, make them all good at different things. Some characters get good driving skills, others have access to a free car, others are great at stealth, some are good shooters. It's not a bad concept and could have been interesting, but it's a pretty bog standard open world game that needs a central character, some sort of narrative pivot point where everything has to feed through to give some kind of forward momentum, because it just doesn't have that. Every person you play as just this vague blank slate that generic voice lines come out of.
Jackson, are you hit?
No, fine.
Just keep your head down. Focus on me, all right? All right?
Yeah, I'm on you.
Because you can literally be anyone, so the dialogue they get for story scenes has to fit every character type possible. So when they do talk and interact with people in other sparse cutscenes, they do not make an impression or do anything exciting. They're just sort of there. The story plays out around them. Weird choice, ultimately hurts the game. I know nobody really particularly likes Aiden Pierce from the first Watch Dogs or his iconic hat, but he's better than whatever this is supposed to be, and honestly, I don't hate him. I kind of find him charming in a weird way. Not in an I want to be around him kind of way, but I think it's funny that he's the main character of a game, actually. And number 16 is Kenshi. Most RPGs, even open world ones, have you as the center of attention, the chosen one. The world literally revolves around you. Even in the more difficult ones, the game is still tailor-made to be about your character specifically. You're the one that matters most, and what you do is what matters. Kenshi, a little different. In this game, you're not the main character. There's no guarantee of epic adventure for you. Most of the time, you end up dead in a ditch or enslaved in a mine. The game is unfair, doesn't pull any punches, and it's possible, not likely, but possible to get more powerful and thrive in this world. But that doesn't mean it's not unforgiving as hell. And number 15 is Kingdom Come Deliverance. This one's a little bit of a cheat because the story is about Henry. He does have an arc over the course of the 2 Kingdom Come games. He has his own story, his own goals. He's not a complete non-character, but at least in the first game, the vast majority of the narrative is dedicated to other characters who are a lot more powerful, obviously. You're constantly under someone else's command who's, way above you. You're not really able to be a direct player in the action. Through most of the game, you're just a blacksmith's son swept up in events outside your control. At the start of the game, you can't even do the most basic stuff. You can't defend yourself. You can't read. You have to learn how to over the course of the story. It's a game where you really have to build yourself up from nothing.
Very well. Let's start with the basics. Keep moving. Your life depends on it.
There's still a traditional narrative going on here, so it's not as unforgiving as something like Kenshi, but if you want to make Henry stronger, you really have to work for it. Like I said, the sequel puts a lot more focus on Henry as a character. He manages to achieve some of the goals he sets for himself in that game, but in the first Kingdom Come, his quest for revenge goes nowhere, and very little actually happens in regard to the narrative.
I'll find the one who did this to you. I remember his face. I'll find him.
Most of the story is dedicated to various nobles that Henry plays second fiddle to. And number 14 is Stray. This game runs into the same problem any game that tries to tell a story starring a non-anthropomorphized animal does. How do you tell a dramatic story when the animal can't talk or express itself in any way? In Stray's case, they just brought in a ringer. Yeah, the nameless cat you play as does have a motive. They want to reunite with their family, but the real story of the game starts when your cat activates the robot B12. This little floating orb that you carry around is the actual protagonist of the story. They're the one that talks and interacts with other characters and tries to discover the mystery of who they are and what their goal is. For most of the game, the cat's really there for transportation. It's a weird situation because if anyone's playing the game, it's for the cat. So in the minds of the audience, the cat's the main character. But if you actually look at the story, the one who actually does stuff and has motivation and character development, it's B12. And number 13 is White Knight Chronicles. I'm not going to cover MMOs because basically every MMO plays out the same way, where no matter how much importance the story quests of the game give your character, at the end of the day, you're just an NPC standing on the sidelines. The problem most standard RPGs don't have, but White Knight Chronicles, it's anything but standard, right? It's the offline MMO before that started to become a standard thing in more ways than one. For the purposes of our discussion, the part that stands out most is how you create this elaborate custom character only to immediately see them get sidelined by literally everyone else. You don't get to be Commander Shepard in this game. You're a hireling in Dungeons and Dragons. No personality, no connection to the plot. You might as well not exist past the first few minutes of the game. From then on, the character who's supposed to be you, your player character, just stands around stock still in the background of every scene, saying and doing nothing. Everyone else gets to talk except you. It's late era Final Fantasy XIV cutscenes, but worse. And number 12 is this war of mine. In most war games, they can be grand strategy games or up close and personal, whatever, with your average military shooter. They rarely give you a little more lip service to the actual cost of war on an individual, for that matter, a massive industrial scale. The civilians, the people who just live in their lives and want nothing to do with the violence going on outside their homes, are generally pretty ignored, right? Not in this war of mine. You're not playing as a soldier. You're not some one-man army badass. You're just a person trying to survive in a country torn apart by war. The actual nature of the conflict is not even really elaborated on, because it doesn't really matter that much. What matters is survival, and it can be unforgiving and brutal. The circumstances of your situation in this game are especially bad. You're running out of food, the city's in ruins, and at this point, everyone's mostly out for themselves. It's practically post-apocalyptic how bleak everything is, and survival is not guaranteed. It's grim, but super interesting, and that puts the focus on the people who are mostly overlooked and forgotten in war games. At number 11, it's Borderlands 3. Your character essentially just being an errand boy with no personality or will of their own is a constant problem in the Borderlands games, but it's especially bad in Borderlands 3, where large swaths of the story are told between characters that are not the player character having a lengthy conversation that has literally nothing to do with you. Your character just sort of stands there, and these little tete-a-tetes happen between recognizable characters from the other Borderlands game. They do all the extra planning and character development.
You got your powers back. Feels good, right?
I spent so long without them, I'd almost gotten used to it. I'm not gonna lie, it does feel good.
They must have realized they went a little overboard with this, because Borderlands 4 pulled back on it pretty hard. Maybe a little too hard, because a lot of returning characters didn't get a lot of screen time. There's a balance to this sort of thing. I think Borderlands 2 managed to hit it, but the third game barely made you feel like a participant in the story. Half the time it felt like you were a spectator watching the story play out. It's kind of boring. It was annoying, and I don't know. There's a lot of stuff wrong with Borderlands 3. It really didn't nail it.
That could kill her! She knows.
At number 10 is Prey. A huge spoiler for an almost 10-year-old game at this point, but if you don't know the big ending twist, skip ahead. So for everyone still here, the Arcane 2017 version of Prey has you playing as a fixed character named Morgan Yu. For the entire game, seems like that's who you're playing as, but once you escape from the station, the credits roll, a big surprise is revealed. You are not Morgan Yu. Instead, you're actually one of the alien Typhon creatures that they've captured who has the memories of Morgan Yu implanted in them. The game has you reliving the fall of the Talos One in a simulated environment where they could assess whether the Typhon creature could be made empathetic to humanity. Depending on the choices you've made in the story, you're considered a success and give humanity a fighting chance to survive the alien threat, or you break free and kill your captors. So you're never actually who the game says you are. You're almost entirely different. At number 9 is StarCraft. With most older RTS games, it's pretty much always the case that you, the player, are never really a character in the story. You're sort of an anonymous commander, even though you're generally the most important single-handed guy thing. Like, if you don't win the war isn't won, you know? You still don't get a name, face, or any kind of acknowledgement, though. Something like the old Command & Conquer games, it didn't really matter. They were so light on characters and plot, it wasn't that noticeable. But with StarCraft, it starts getting weird. The game's full of characters like Jim Raynor and Sarah Kerrigan and Arcturus Minsk, but you're just the commander. In later Blizzard RTS games, you just make the main character the commander. But the first StarCraft was a bit before that was common practice. It's not something that's really noticeable until you start thinking about it. You're essentially the leader of your chosen faction, but you're just nobody in the lore. At number 8, Moon Remix RPG Adventure, a quirky little game intentionally trying to subvert standard JRPG stuff. Instead of killing things, you're trying to bring them back to life. Instead of being the chosen one hero, you're just a faceless NPC trying to get by in the world. The hero is shown to be a destructive oaf who just blunders around, steals everything from people's houses, and kills everything that moves. Simple subversion, but it works well. You get to see the usual RPG story from a villager's perspective who lives, a normal life, and it's being ruined by the hero who literally acts like they're being controlled by a human character with the way they're moving and generally behaving. It's a fun twist on the standard RPG hero to make them the villain, basically. Not because they've been corrupted or whatever, just because the designers of the game realized that if you acted how you do in RPGs, killing wildlife with reckless abandon, robbing people's houses, all the normal people would hate you. And number 7, Paper Mario, the Origami King. In basically every Mario RPG, and there's a lot of them, they tend to run into a problem. Mario doesn't talk, so how do you actually tell a story in these games? They are RPGs after all, so they can't just be linear assortment of levels. There has to be some kind of narrative that ties things together. Usually the solution is to have another character be the one doing the talking, and Mario doesn't. Generally that's fine, works out perfectly fine. Doesn't necessarily make them steal the spotlight from Mario too much, but in the most recent Paper Mario game, feels like Mario plays the second banana to the game's true protagonist, Olivia. She's the usual exposition, shouting, floating helper Mario tends to get in these games, but instead of simply being the game's versions of Navi, there's a lot more plot significance for Olivia, because it's literally the sister of the titular Origami King, who's the main antagonist of the game. Not so noticeable for a lot of the story, but by the end, she really is just the main character. Entire ending cutscene is basically dedicated to her big sacrifice. Mario's an afterthought. And number 6 is Enter the Matrix. First game set in the world of the Matrix, but instead of playing as the one, you're 2 minor characters from the second movie who don't really do anything or have a huge significant impact on the plot. Neo is out deciding the fate of humanity, and you're running around doing errands in the background, sort of tie back into the plot of the movie, but only kind of, not fully. It is impressive they were able to bring in the actors from The Matrix Reloaded to make this game feel like an extension of the movie, but the plot significance of anything you do is pretty minor. Instead of making it feel like it's an essential part of understanding The Matrix Reloaded, feels like you're getting the movie's sloppy seconds. I do kind of wish that Niobe and Ghost had compelling stories in their own right. Would have made the game feel like it matters, but they really don't. Kind of just a half-baked rehash of stuff that is implied to happen in the movie, and thus you don't really need to see, but you see in the game. And number 5 is Metal Gear Solid 5, another twist from an even older game, but almost everyone knows this at this point, so let's just tear the band-aid off. Big Boss is not the character you play as in Metal Gear Solid 5. You play as him in the Ground Zero's prologue, but after that you're Venom, an anonymous mercenary who's given plastic surgery so he looks like Big Boss, and because of your character's amnesia and side effects of his coma, he believes he's Big Boss, but he's not.
As of today, your name is Ahab. Forget everything. Your name, your past.
The entire game was created to explain how Big Boss managed to die in Metal Gear 1 and come back in Metal Gear 2. That's why this character exists, to be the sacrificial Big Boss who gets nuked by Solid Snake in the first game. You are not playing as the main character here. You are playing as a decoy of the main character. It's a weird choice that would have been more satisfying if the reveal wasn't the end of the game and they had the opportunity to explore the ramifications of your guy finding out he's not who he thinks he is.
Now do you remember who you are? What you were meant to do?
There is a story to be told there, but Metal Gear Solid 5 doesn't really do that, can't really do that. Like, they throw this crazy thing out at the last minute and cuts to credits, and it's pretty much unresolved. By this point, Konami was just fed up with whatever they perceived Kojima to be doing, which is unfortunate because it would have been really cool. And number 4 is Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Immediately after this game, we got Black Ops, which intentionally puts a face and voice onto the character you spent most of the campaign playing as. But before the game, most of the characters you played as in Call of Duty were anonymous. You were just a body with a name that the actual main characters could order around. Sure, Soap eventually gets a character and a voice in Modern Warfare 2, but the first game, he was just a blank slate, a nobody. The actual main characters are the commanding officers, like Captain Price.
The M21's on the other side of the hill. The rockets have killed hundreds of civilians in the valley below.
Not so fast. Remember Beirut? You're with us.
But it's actually kind of hard to call anyone a main character in these old games because they're a lot more focused on the plot than the characters. At least with this game, they do try to make some of the soldiers into memorable personalities, but I don't know. The only really memorable character in the old COD games is Captain Price from the second game, and that's why they transported him through time to the modern era for this game. He's basically the main character, along with some of the other recurring characters like Gaz and Sergeant Griggs, but the guy you play as is to voiceless nobody who's an observer with a gun rather than an actual character.
It's the FNG, sir. Go easy on him, sir. It's his first day in the regiment.
Right. What the hell kind of name is Soap, eh? How'd a muppet like you pass selection?
And number 3 is Final Fantasy XII. Can't have a list like this without mentioning Vaughn. He's the most sidelined, inconsequential hero in the entire series. Led to a lot of people wondering really what the point of his character is. Yeah, the start of the game is you playing as him, but the story gets quickly dominated by more interesting and important characters like Balthier and Princess Ashe, the latter of which is generally agreed upon to be the real protagonist of the game. Similar things have been said about Titus in Final Fantasy X, but he's more of a true main character than Vaughn is. Titus at least has a character arc. Vaughn just sort of floats around. If you've played other games from the first director of Final Fantasy XII, Yasumi Matsuno, you know he likes to tell stories about a lower class, seemingly less important character who gets ping-ponged around by various powerful organizations and individuals. Final Fantasy Tactics and the Tactics Ogre games are full of this. They handle it a lot better than Final Fantasy XII, though. The biggest issues revolve around the fact there's just not enough story. It just sort of disappears for vast swaths of the experience. In these segments, there's really no protagonist at all. You're just kind of doing stuff. But when the plot actually kicks in times for happen, inevitably the game's quote-unquote main character gets pushed to the sidelines. And number 2, The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. One of the most common complaints about the story of Oblivion is your character isn't the chosen one. You're not the guy who defeats Maruna's dragon at the end. You're just the errand boy helping him out. The actual main character is Martin Septim, the bastard son of the Emperor, who's the actual guy who answers the call of adventure and steps up to become a leader in the end.
If you came to me for help, you're more of a fool than you look. Look around. What good is a priest? Emperor Uriel Septim? You think the Emperor is my father?
Now, kind of an exaggeration because you're still a hero. In reality, you're the one doing most of the important plot-moving stuff in the game. It's just that in the end, it's Martin who actually saves the day. So you're kind of the main character. It's just that the main character duties are split between you and an NPC, and that rubs some people the wrong way.
You have proven yourself a loyal servant of the Empire, as worthy as any of the Blades to stand by Martin's side during this crisis. As the Grand Master of the Blades, I would be honored to accept you into our order.
Funny thing is, apparently you were supposed to be the Imperial heir that had to rise up from low beginnings and embrace your destiny, but the developers realized that making that your story would limit the kind of character you play as. These games let you be good and evil, play as any race you want, never really lock you into playing a specific character with a predetermined backstory, so they took the original idea and made Martin the one that did that stuff, while you could just be a blank slate and do whatever you want. Ultimately, probably the right call, actually. We've all played Fallout 4. We know what it looks like when Bethesda give your character specific goals and a backstory. Doesn't really work. So even if Martin does come off as being a little too important compared to our guy, the alternative probably would have been worse. And finally, at number 1, it's the Bureau XCOM Declassified. Bet you didn't know this thing had a twist. This bizarre game was originally announced before the fantastic XCOM reboot, went through development hell, and eventually came out the other side as a bizarre, half-baked prequel to that game. It got middling reviews, and most people didn't care, but I've got to give the game credit for something. The twist is nuts. It's kind of impressive there even is a twist. I didn't think you had it in you, game. So for the majority of the game, it feels like the main character is a generic 1960s G-Man William Carter. It's only much later in the story that it's revealed that you are not Carter, but an alien being called an ethereal, who's actually possessing the guy and also believes it's human because of convoluted reasons. It's not the game I thought they'd be throwing out Bioshock-esque twists at us in, but there it is. The end of the game gets real weird with this stuff, too. You lose control of Carter, who goes off to do his own thing, and you possess a different character for the final segment. It's extremely strange and kind of interesting, so it's unfortunate that the game isn't that much fun to actually play, so most people aren't gonna bother going through the trouble to see any of this stuff, and even when you do, it's not really worth the effort anyways. And that's a good place to end, I think. Leave us a comment, let us know what you thought of this, what you thought about the Bureau or any of these other games. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. Become a member of the 1% Club and listen to The Falcon Show. We're having a blast over there. Thanks a lot to everybody for listening there. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.